what if that shadow you sometimes see right out in the corner of your eye, what if it isn't some ghost, but maybe a flicker? A flicker of, well, you from another reality.
Or think about that really intense déjà vu feeling, that visceral chill.
Yeah.
You just know a place or a moment, even though you've never been there. We usually just brush it off, right? A brain glitch.
Right, just a weird
But
quirk.
what if it's not a glitch? What if it's the opposite? Like proof that the walls we build between, say, the dream world and the waking world, they can actually collapse for a second.
That collapse, wow, that feeling of being in two places, or maybe two stories, at once.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're diving into today.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, everyone, to another My Mind MashUps Deep Dive. This is where we unravel mysteries, spark that curiosity, and try to make sense of complex ideas together.
And our mission today really is to figure out why people keep reporting these liminal experiences, these in-between moments. We're looking at brain science, some pretty out there quantum physics.
Definitely out there.
And also ancient wisdom, cultural stories that suggest maybe yourself isn't just stuck inside your head.
We've got some fascinating stuff lined up. Research from MIT on guiding dreams, the whole controversial science around consciousness, even studies looking at hunter-gatherer dreams.
That's a real mix.
It is. So if you enjoy content that really pushes you to think, maybe think differently, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Okay, let's start where it feels most physical. The brain itself. The brain caught between worlds.
Right. So when your brain shifts gears, like between waking and sleeping, it doesn't always mesh perfectly. There can be overlap.
Neurobiological overlaps, you mean?
Exactly. And the most, well, frankly, terrifying example is probably sleep paralysis.
Oh yeah, sleep paralysis is.
Yeah.
It's genuinely scary. You're basically awake, your mind is alert,
Mm-hmm. Consciousness is online.
but your body, still in that REM state. Still paralyzed, essentially. You can't move.
And that's where things get weird. Because your mind knows it's awake, but it can't explain the paralysis logically. So it often, well, it creates a story.
A narrative to explain the feeling.
Precisely. And that often involves that classic feeling of an intruder in the room or, intense pressure on the chest.
So a shadow figure, the ghost, all those things people report.
Yeah.
It could just be the dreaming parts of the brain kind of bleeding into the waking state,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of being unable to move.
That's a really common interpretation, yeah. A literal collision between your dream state mechanisms and your waking consciousness.
But it's not always terrifying, right? This boundary blurring.
No, not at all. Think about hypnagogia, that twilight zone, just as you're drifting off to sleep or maybe waking up.
Right, the vivid images, sometimes sounds.
Yeah, and research actually shows that brain activity during hypnagogia looks surprisingly similar, electrophysiologically speaking, to REM sleep, especially in the visual cortex.
And this state. It's actually really important creatively, isn't it? Didn't Kekulé figure out the benzene ring structure in a sort of half-dream state?
He did. It's famous for that. It's such a potentially useful state that MIT Media Lab even developed something called the Dormio glove.
A Dormio glove, what's that?
It's designed to track when someone enters that hypnagogic state and then gently guide them, maybe prompt them to sort of harness the creativity that happens there using tech to leverage this neuro overlap for ideas.
Wow. Okay, so the brain physically merging these states, that's pretty clear.
Mhm.
But connecting that to the bigger picture, you mentioned quantum physics.
Well, this is where it gets speculative, but also fascinating. Could the overlap be more than just brain chemistry? Could it be quantum?
Okay, now we're really diving deep. Parallel realities and quantum stuff. Let's start with the many worlds interpretation, MWI.
Right, MWI, put simply. It suggests that whenever a quantum event happens with multiple possible outcomes, the universe doesn't just pick one.
It doesn't collapse into one reality.
According to MWI, no, it branches. Every single possible outcome happens, just in its own separate branch of the multiverse. Parallel worlds constantly splitting off.
So theoretically, there are countless versions of me, of you, living out every possible choice we didn't make.
That's the implication, yeah. An almost infinite number of parallel universes existing right alongside ours, maybe just vibrating at a different frequency, metaphorically speaking.
Okay, back to the sleep paralysis intruder. Is it just my brain misfiring REM signals, or is it even possible my consciousness, being in that vulnerable in-between state, briefly picks up on, well, another me from a nearby branch?
That's the kind of wild philosophical leap MWI invites. It opens that door. Now, if we want to connect that idea to consciousness itself, we have to touch on a really debated theory, Orch, or our orchestrated objective reduction.
Penrose and Hameroff. I remember hearing about this. The idea that consciousness itself is a quantum process happening inside the brain.
That's the core idea. They propose that consciousness emerges from quantum computations, or oscillations, happening within these tiny structures inside neurons called microtubules.
The neuron's internal scaffolding, basically.
Exactly, acting like tiny quantum computers. They point to certain observed coherence times within these microtubules as potential, though very controversial, evidence that these quantum effects could be sustained long enough to be relevant for consciousness.
That feels like a huge jump, though.
Oh.
Tiny structures inside single cells orchestrating our entire conscious experience through quantum effects. Doesn't that sort of gloss over emotion, memory, all the complex stuff?
It's definitely a mechanism-focused theory, maybe less about the subjective experience, but if consciousness has this quantum underpinning, like Orch suggests, it provides a potential physical pathway, a way our awareness could, theoretically, interact with or perceive hints of those alternate possibilities that MWI talks about.
Okay, I see the connection. So you have the brain's known tendency to mix up states, like REM intrusion, and then you have these physics theories, MWI and Orch or R, suggesting reality itself might be branched and consciousness might have a quantum link.
Put them together and you get a framework. A way to think about why we might perceive these ghostly figures or have these uncanny feelings. It's either a brain glitch or maybe something more fundamental crossing over.
Right, so the mechanism, whether purely neurological or potentially quantum, allows for these strange perceptions. But what about the most common glitch of all? Déjà vu. That feeling of having lived a moment before. How does psychology tackle that?
Well, the standard view in neuroscience is that déjà vu is essentially a type of memory error, a perfectly normal brain glitch.
A glitch, okay.
Yeah.
But why does it feel so profound? Not like forgetting your keys, It feels significant.
Absolutely. And that's likely because of how the glitch happens. The feeling itself is generated very convincingly by the brain circuits involved. One leading idea involves the parahippocampal gyrus,
Which deals with familiarity detection.
Exactly. It detects familiarity. The theory suggests it might activate, giving you that strong, I know this feeling, but without the hippocampus kicking in properly to retrieve the actual detailed memory of when or how you know it.
Okay, so you get the feeling of knowing, but not the data to back it up, like a broken link.
Kind of, yeah. You get the alert, but the message content is missing. It creates that weird, unsettling sense of misplaced familiarity.
But then what about déjà rêvé? That's slightly different, isn't it? The feeling you dreamt this specific moment before? That implies a memory trace does exist, just from a dream.
That's a great point. Déjà rêvé suggests the familiarity is linked to a stored experience, just one that occurred during sleep. It often happens when something in your waking environment shares key features, maybe the layout, the atmosphere, the feeling with a past dream.
Gestalt features, they call them.
Right. The brain stores dream memories sometimes more as patterns or emotional tones than as sharp details. So if a real place matches that stored dream vibe,
It triggers the familiarity network, but connects it back to the dream memory, not a waking one.
exactly. And this ties into lucid dreaming too, people who are frequent lucid dreamers.
They can control their dreams, right? Become aware they're dreaming.
Yes, and studies show they often have stronger connections in their prefrontal cortex. That's the bit involved in self-awareness, planning, metacognition.
So they're better at sort of mapping and navigating these internal dream worlds.
It seems so. They can create these highly vivid, often recurring dream environments. So if you spend a lot of time consciously building and exploring an internal reality, it's maybe less surprising if fragments or feelings from that reality occasionally seep into your waking perception as déjà rêvé.
That makes a lot of sense. If this whole idea of collapsing boundaries and dream memories bleeding through is resonating with you, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next deep dive.
Please do.
Okay, so we've looked at the brain, at physics, at psychology, but what about culture? It's fascinating how many different societies, long before neuroscience, developed ideas about dream travel, doubles, other selves.
It really is. It pushes us to ask, if Western science often defaults to seeing the self as this fixed, singular thing inside our heads, how do other traditions see it, especially in relation to dreams?
Well, anthropologically speaking, in many cultures, dreams aren't just seen as like mental noise or wish fulfillment.
Right. They're often treated as real experiences, objective sources of knowledge, guidance, even healing.
There's that really interesting recent study comparing dreams in Bayaka and Hadza hunter-gatherer groups with Western dreams.
Yes. It found their dreams often involve things like community support, resolving conflicts, finding solutions, generally much more positive and sort of socially integrated narratives.
Whereas Western dreams, the study noted, tend to be more negative, anxious, often unresolved.
Which suggests, potentially, that for these groups, the dream world isn't separate. It's part of the social fabric, a space where the self actively engages with community issues and finds answers, even while asleep.
Their sense of self seems more distributed, not just confined to the waking individual.
Exactly. And that idea of a distributed, non-fixed self connects directly to all that folklore about doppelgangers, doesn't it?
The double, seeing your exact replica.
Which, across so many cultures, is seen as this powerful omen, sometimes terrifying, sometimes just strange. Proof, maybe, that the soul or some part of the self could literally be in two places at once, wandering.
It's like the ancient world's version of the many worlds interpretation in a way. A cultural parallel acknowledging the self isn't strictly singular or localized.
And maybe when people today experience things like seeing a shadow person during sleep paralysis, they're having a modern, neurologically explainable experience.
But it taps into that same ancient, culturally resonant idea.
Yes.
The boundary between the waking you and the dreaming you, or maybe even another you, is porous. It can leak.
Yeah. It's not a solid wall.
Okay, let's try and pull all these threads together. We've got the neurobiology, like RAM intrusion, creating phantom intruders. We've got the quantum possibilities, MWI, suggesting parallel selves, and the cultural views, the wandering double, the distributed self.
And when you lay them all side by side, the brain glitches, the physics theories, the ancient beliefs, they all seem to point towards the same fundamental human experience, don't they?
Which is?
That we perceive things in the gaps, in the liminal spaces. That our conscious experience, our sense of a single solid reality, it's maybe much less solid, much less fixed than we usually assume.
Right. It's not as neat and tidy.
Definitely not. And sometimes analogies help make this less abstract.
Yeah, let's try some. I like the radio stations of reality, one for MWI.
Explain that one.
Okay, so imagine the multiverse is like a vast radio spectrum with countless stations broadcasting simultaneously. Our current life is the station we're tuned into.
Okay.
Dreams maybe are like briefly tuning into an adjacent station, catching snippets of another broadcast.
And that ghostly glimpse, or the déjà vu.
That's like interference. Hearing two stations faintly overlaid for just a moment. The bleed through from another reality, another self-song.
I like that. Or the bubbles in a soda analogy for quantum reality.
How does that go?
Think of each bubble in a fizzy drink as a separate universe. We live inside one bubble.
Right.
Dreams, or those weird feelings, might be like the subtle wobble or pressure change we feel when our bubble bumps up against another one. That brief contact causes that sense of instability or strange familiarity.
Okay, cool. And linking back to the brain itself.
The brain elevator works well there. Imagine your brain has different floors. The awake floor, the dreaming floor, the deep sleep floor.
Got it.
Sleep paralysis or hypnagogia. That's like the elevator getting stuck between floors. You're not fully on one or the other, so for a moment you can kind of see aspects of both environments at once. Dream stuff appearing in your waking room.
These analogies really help visualize it. Ultimately, what really stands out from all this is that these extraordinary feelings, the weird glitches, this sense of another presence, maybe they aren't errors at all.
Maybe they're just the natural output, the result of how our brains are wired, the potential nature of reality itself according to physics, and how humans have always made sense of a self that feels bigger than just the body.
So the final synthesis is, what? Dreams and reality aren't opposites.
Maybe not opposites, no. More like different frequencies, different modes of processing the same underlying information stream that makes up yourself. They both shape who we are.
So maybe that ghost isn't here to haunt you. Maybe it's just a reminder that you exist in more than one story at the same time.
And maybe déjà vu isn't really about the past repeating. Maybe it's a glimpse sideways. Proof that your consciousness is wider than just linear time. Maybe borrowing a feeling from another version of you who already went down that path.
That is a seriously thought-provoking place to wrap things up.
Wow. We really hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity for you. Maybe expanded how you think about those moments when reality just feels a bit off. We would genuinely love to hear your own experiences or thoughts on this. Have you ever felt like you met yourself in a dream? or had a dream that seemed to predict something?
Yeah, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Seriously, your perspective could totally shape where we go in a future deep dive.
It really could.
And please, if you found this interesting, do like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us keep bringing you more My Mind Mashups deep dives.
You can find My Mind Mashups pretty much everywhere you get your audio. Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube.
Check us out there.
Remember, we didn't come this far just to come this far.
This is My Mind Mashups.